How private banks magically creates money. Every hour of every day, a government facility in Washington, D.C. turns paper into money. To keep up with demand, these machines run 24/7, pumping over $500 million into the U.S. economy daily. But here's the twist. That cash is just a tiny fraction of the money that actually exists. Today, most money is digital. It doesn't come from printing presses, but from keystrokes on a keyboard. Over $4 billion in new digital dollars is created every single day. So where does all this money come from? Before it hits your bank account, it's passed through countless hands, governments, businesses, and individuals, all tracing back to a number typed into existence on a screen. To understand how money really works, how it powers the economy, drives inflation, and quietly puts you in debt, we have to go back to a time before money even existed.
Part 1. The origins of money.
Thousands of years ago, if a farmer needed a tool, he'd head to the local tool maker. But if he had nothing to trade, they would simply agree. You owe me. This early barter system worked because of trust. The farmer would later return with food, repaying the value of the tool. As trade grew, bartering became inefficient, so people turned to universal goods like cattle, grain, and salt, items everyone needed but were hard to come by. Eventually, these were replaced by something even better: metal coins, gold and silver. They were small, valuable, durable, and portable. This change revolutionized trade from China to Europe and gave birth to the first true form of money as a medium of exchange. But carrying gold across distances was risky, and that's when money began to evolve again.
Part 2. The birth of banking and loans.
In 17th century London, goldsmiths began offering a new service. They'd store your gold and, in return, give you a paper note, a promise that you could claim your gold at any time. These IOUs were as good as gold. People started trading the paper itself instead of the metal. But goldsmiths noticed something. Most people never came back for their gold, so they began issuing extra notes, backed by nothing. Fake money loaned out with interest. And just like that, they were making money out of thin air. A goldsmith could lend 100 coins they didn't physically have, just a piece of paper representing that value. When the borrower repaid it with interest, the goldsmith made a profit. From one fake loan, the total money supply increased, even though no new gold was added to the system. This was the blueprint for today's banking system.
Part 3. How banks create money today.
Modern banks operate on the same principle. We think banks just store our money, but when you deposit cash, the bank doesn't lock it in a vault, they owe it to you. Your balance is just a digital promise. And when a bank issues a loan, they don't hand out someone else's deposit, they create brand new money typed directly into your account. This process is called fractional reserve banking. What the heck is fractional reserve banking? Okay, imagine this. You walk into a bank and give them $100 to keep safe. You think they're going to put that $100 in a vault, right? Wrong. The bank keeps only a small slice, like $10, and then lends out the other $90 to someone else. That other person goes and buys a phone or pays rent with your money. But here's the crazy part. You can still see your full $100 in your bank account, and the person who borrowed the $90 is also out there, spending your money. Boom, now it looks like there's $190 in the economy, but there's really just $100. The bank just made new money out of thin air. Each transaction fuels new ones, powering businesses, funding tech, feeding families. This chain reaction is what keeps the modern economy alive. But there's a problem.
Part 4. Inflation, debt, and economic growth.
When new money enters the system without a matching increase in goods or productivity, prices rise. This is inflation, and it eats away at your purchasing power. If the economy produces fewer goods, but banks keep creating money, there's more competition for less stuff. Result: prices go up. This is why central banks and governments try to regulate how much money enters the economy. But the truth is, in today's system, most money is created as debt.
Part 5. The role of central banks and government bonds.
Historically, banks were only allowed to loan out a percentage of the cash they had. But now, they have near robot freedom, and when they run low on reserve money, they just ask the central bank. Here's where it gets interesting. To create new money, the government issues a bond, a promise to pay investors interest in the future. Banks, corporations, and even foreign countries buy these US Treasury bonds. That money goes into the government's budget and is used to pay workers, fund projects, and keep the economy running. But the US government almost always spends more than it earns. So it's constantly creating new bonds, borrowing money to pay off old debts. In 2024, the government spent nearly $7 trillion, far more than it collected in taxes. To cover the gap, it created new debt, which added even more money into the system. This cycle of borrowing to fund spending drives the national debt, fuels inflation, and keeps the system going.
Conclusion. The real cost of creating money.
As strange as it sounds, this is how most of the world's financial systems operate, creating money through debt. It's not inherently bad, but it's far from perfect. If new money were directed toward productive investments, education, infrastructure, innovation, it could generate long-term returns for society. Instead, much of it fuels consumption, speculation, and growing inequality. So the next time you check your bank balance or see the government announce a new spending plan, remember, most of that money didn't come from gold, taxes, or savings. It was typed into existence out of thin air. If you found this video on how banks magically create money mind-blowing, then you'll definitely want to check out the next piece in the puzzle. Why every country is in debt. And who do they owe? It uncovers the global debt game and explains why even the richest countries keep borrowing and who's really footing the bill. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think national debt is a necessary evil or a ticking time bomb? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one. And if you're enjoying this deep dive series into how money really works, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.